Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Now this Hmong scary ghost story was submitted by a viewer who wanted to share their experience living in a very haunted house in Oakdale, Minnesota. There's plenty of things that happen in this story that you might struggle to believe just as much as I do. Now these are his accounts and experiences from him and his family that he wants to share. And if you would also like to share your own stories, please remember to send them to the email listed below in the description. Now before we get started, remember to leave a like and subscribe. And without further ado, enjoy the video. I want to share some stories that happened to me when I was in high school. This was back in the early 2000s. During that time, my family and I lived in a house in Oakdale, Minnesota. At the time, my family was renting, and my parents were always looking for a place that had enough room for us but wasn't too expensive. It was me, my older brother, my younger sister, and then my mom and dad. Before that, we lived in a small apartment. My older brother and I were getting too old to keep sharing a tight space. My parents wanted a real house with a basement, a garage, and a yard. My dad found the house through someone he knew from work. It was one of those rentals where a friend knew a friend that knew the owner. The rent was lower than the other houses in that area, so my parents thought it was a good idea. My mom liked the kitchen because it was bigger than what we had before in the apartment, and my dad liked the garage and the finished basement. Our house was a split level. When you walked in, there was a small landing. Up a few steps were the living room, kitchen, hallway, the bedrooms, and the bathroom. Downstairs was the basement, laundry room, another small bathroom, and a family room. The house wasn't old, but it had that early 80s to 90s feeling. It had the brown carpet, yellowish walls, some older cabinets, and a basement that always felt colder than upstairs. When we first moved in, nothing felt scary, it just felt empty. We moved in during the fall, so the weather was already getting cold. My parents were happy because everyone finally had space. My sister had her own room, my parents had the bigger room, and Thu and I, we still shared the room at the end of the hallway. The first strange thing that I remember happening was maybe a few months after we had moved in. My mom was cooking dinner like usual, and after we ate, my sister was washing the dishes. My mom was very strict about washing dishes. She never liked leaving dishes in the sink overnight. That night, I went to sleep at around 11. It was a little later than I usually slept for a school day. I was about to fall asleep when I heard water running from the kitchen. At first, I thought it was my mom. My parents stayed up later than us sometimes, and then, out of nowhere, I heard dishes moving. Not like someone grabbing a cup. It sounded like someone was actually washing dishes. Water running, a plate being set onto our drying rack, a spoon hitting the sink, and just sounds like that. I opened my eyes and looked at my brother. My brother was still asleep. I whispered to him and asked if our mom was still awake. My older brother replied to me, kind of annoyed, that he didn't know. We listened for a little bit. The water was still running. I decided to get up and open our bedroom door. The hallway was dark except for a small nightlight near our bathroom. I walked slowly toward the kitchen because I didn't want to scare my mom if she was really there. When I got into the living room, I could see into the kitchen. Nobody was there. The sink was dry, the faucet was off, and there weren't any dishes on the rack or inside the sink. My older brother came up behind me and asked what I was doing. I told him that I heard water. He said that he heard it too. We checked the bathroom. Nobody was in there. My parents, their door was closed, and we could hear my dad snoring through the door. My sister's room was closed as well. I told myself that maybe I was just imagining things. I didn't think much about it during that time, and the two of us went back to bed. A few nights later, it happened again. This time, it was a little louder. I woke up because I heard pots and pans moving in the kitchen. My mom had those typical Hmong metal pots. They made a very specific sound when they kind of hit each other. It sounded like someone was picking up a pot, setting it down, and kind of sliding it across the counter. I sat up and looked over at my brother. He was already awake. He whispered, "Do you hear that?" And I told him yeah and nodded my head. The two of us waited. The sound kept on going. It had a pattern, like someone was washing one pot, rinsing it, setting it down, and then grabbing another one. My brother grabbed one of those cheap metal katanas that he bought at a Hmong New Year and went outside. I followed him behind. The two of us walked into the kitchen, and the sound stopped right when our feet touched the living room carpet. That was the first time I really felt scared. Not because of the sound, but because it stopped at the exact moment we got close. It was like whoever was there heard us coming. My brother turned on the kitchen light. Nothing. The sink was empty, the counters were clean, there wasn't even a single drop of water anywhere nearby. My brother told me that it might have been the neighbors, but it was a house. The neighbors were not connected to us. The next day, we told our mom, and like every normal Hmong mom, she told us that the two of us might have been dreaming. My dad was sitting on the sofa watching TV. He told us that houses make sounds, especially when it gets cold. He told us not to talk too much about it, otherwise it'll scare our younger sister. So we decided to leave it alone. Here's another experience that I want to share with you. It happened to my younger sister. One time, my sister said that she heard someone calling out to her. The first time, she was doing homework at the kitchen table after school. My mom was in the basement doing laundry, and my brother and I were not home yet. My sister said that she heard our mom call her from the hallway. She looked up and responded, saying what, but nobody answered. Then she heard it again, this time a little softer. It told her, "Come over here." My sister walked into the hallway thinking that my mom needed help, but all the bedroom doors were open and nobody was there. She went downstairs and found my mom folding clothes in the laundry room. My mom said that she never called out to her. My sister thought it was kind of weird. Later that night, she told me instead of my older brother because she knew that he would tease her about it. I told her that it was probably the TV, or maybe mom actually called her and just forgot. She told me that the TV was off and mom was downstairs the whole time. Now that we're a little older, my parents also shared some of their stories with me as well. My mom shared this one particular experience she had. She said that one night she was the last person awake. She had been cleaning the kitchen and getting rice ready for the next day. She said that she finished washing the rice pot, wiped down the counter, and turned off all the lights. As soon as she walked past the stove, she heard someone behind her open the cabinet under the sink. She knew that for sure she was the only person awake, so she turned around. And as she did, she noticed that the cabinet door was wide open. She knew that she had closed it because obviously she had to wash the dishes there, and it'd be kind of inconvenient for her to do dishes with the cabinet open. She walked over to it and closed it, and then she turned around and took about 2 steps away. This time, she heard it open again. Not fast, but slowly, just enough that she could see the dark space under the sink. My mom said that she didn't scream, she just stared at it. And then she said in Hmong, "If you live here too, don't bother me and my family and my children." After that, she closed the cabinet again and then went straight to the bedroom. The next morning, she said that she told my dad, and my dad said that maybe the cabinet was uneven or that it was old and the hinges needed to be fixed. So he took a look at it and fixed it a little bit. That was one story that my mom shared with us. Here's some more stuff that I remember happened at that house. Living at that house, once in a while, we would hear scratching at night. It would come from inside the wall. It wasn't loud, but just enough to wake you up. The first time I heard it at night, I was sleeping, and I thought that my older brother was messing with me. I threw a pillow at him and told him to stop, and he sat up and said that it wasn't him. Then it happened again. We could hear scratching coming from inside the wall. It came from the wall beside my bed. The next morning, we checked the wall, and there was nothing there. No marks, no scratches, or any holes at all. We told our dad about it, and he said that it could just be mice in the walls. This happened enough to where my dad bought some mouse traps and put them around the house. He put them in the basement, behind the stove, in the closets and stuff, and despite doing all of this, we never caught a single mouse. There were no droppings, no leftover food, nothing like that, but the scratching still continued. Another time, my brother told me of an experience that he had. He told me that it was a Friday night and he was staying up late in the basement playing video games. I had already gone to bed, and he said that at around midnight, he paused the game because he heard footsteps upstairs. At first, he thought it was our dad going to the bathroom. The footsteps went from the hallway to the kitchen. Then he heard water running. He got annoyed because by then, all of us were tired of the kitchen sounds. He turned off the TV and walked upstairs. When he got to the landing, he could hear the water clearly, even though the kitchen light was off. He took one more step. The water stopped. Then he heard someone whispering in the kitchen. He could not make out what it said. He said that it sounded like a man and a woman talking under their breath. He called out for our mom, and nobody answered. And then he called out for our dad, and nobody answered as well. Then out of nowhere, he heard a chair slide from across the kitchen floor. My brother turned on the living room light. The kitchen was empty, but one of the chairs at the table had been pulled out and turned toward the hallway. My mom always pushed the chairs in before bed. My brother decided to not get any closer. He walked backward down the stairs, grabbed his stuff, and then came into our room. I woke up when he opened the door. I asked him why he was so loud, and he didn't say anything. He just went to bed right away. I think after that, my older brother told our parents because they began leaving a small lamp on in the living room. My mom told us that it was so we could see if we needed water or to use the bathroom, but I think that scared my parents as well. For a while, the lamp really helped. The house felt a little less darker. We still heard things, but nothing too bad. Sometimes the floor creaked in the hallway even when everyone was in bed. And sometimes the cabinet under the sink was still open in the morning. We were scared of this, but our family was getting used to it. It sounds a little weird, but when you live with something strange long enough, you start making rules around it. We stopped going into the kitchen alone at night, we left our lights on, my brother and I kept our room locked, and we made sure that all the windows and doors were locked. In that house, we've also experienced sleep paralysis as well. This was some of the first experiences that I've had in my entire life. The first time that it happened, I tried to tell myself that it was normal. It was on a school night. I fell asleep facing the wall. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up but I couldn't move. At first, I was confused, wondering why I couldn't move. Then I heard someone breathing behind me. My brother's bed was on the other side of the room, not behind me. Behind me was open space and the closet door. The breathing was close, like someone was standing beside my bed and leaning near my ear. I tried to move my hand, but nothing happened. I tried calling my brother's name, but nothing came out. Then, the breathing got heavier, and I could feel like somebody was pressing down on my body. I could feel like my whole body was sinking. That was when I was panicking. My whole chest felt heavy, and my ears were ringing. I wanted to turn my head, but I could not. I continued to struggle and try to wake up, and after what felt like a very long time, I finally broke free. I jumped out of bed so fast that I hit my knee on the wall. My brother woke up and asked what happened. I could barely talk. I just kept saying that I got sat on. He turned on the light and nothing was there, but the blanket on my bed was pulled halfway down, like someone had pulled it. I did not sleep in that bed for almost 2 nights. I was sleeping in the room with my parents. Eventually, my parents got a Hmong knife and put it under my pillow, and that seemed to help a little bit. Another story happened with my sister. She said that it was on a weekend in the morning. My parents weren't home, and my brother and I were still asleep. My sister was still awake in her room. She said she heard the front door open and then close, and she heard what sounded like plastic grocery bags being set on the kitchen floor. She heard her mom call out to her to go and help them bring the groceries in. My sister got up and walked out of her room. She said she saw someone standing in the kitchen, turned away from her. She said that it looked like our mom from the back, the same height, the same black hair, and the same kind of shirt that my mom wore around the house. My sister responded okay and got up and went to the bathroom. When she got out of the bathroom, she went into the living room and noticed that nobody was there. She was confused, and that was when the house phone rang. It was sitting on the kitchen countertop. She went and picked it up, and it was my mom. My mom was telling her to wake the 2 of us up so that way we could all help them carry the stuff inside of the house. This freaked out my sister. She came to our bedroom door and started pounding on the door. My brother got up and opened the door, asking why she was knocking on it so loud. My sister came into our room and explained the story. She said that she heard Mom calling out for her, so she got up to go and help her bring the stuff into the house, but she needed to use the bathroom first, and when she came out of the bathroom, she didn't see our mom anywhere. That was when the phone rang, and it was our mom on the other side. Mom was telling us that she was going to be home very soon, and for all of us to go out and help them carry the groceries inside. The 3 of us just stayed in our room and locked our door. Later, my parents came in and we could hear them open the door, and then my mom came and started knocking on our door to come out and help them carry the stuff. My mom asked why my sister looked like she was just crying, and that's when we explained the story to her. This got my dad concerned, so he looked around the house and checked everything, made sure all the doors were locked and all the windows were closed. Sure enough, they were. Around that time, my mom called one of her brothers, which was one of my uncles. He was not a shaman, but he knew a lot of older people, and he had been around enough spiritual stuff that my mom trusted him. That weekend, we went to go and visit our uncle and our aunt. We didn't do much. My parents just talked with them while the rest of us played with our cousins. My uncle told our parents that it was a very high possibility that our house already had spirits living in it. And he said for us to not worry because he and our auntie will come to sweep and bless the house. Now, my uncle was a lot older, and my mom's parents weren't alive anymore, so he was in charge of a lot of these things. A couple of days later, they showed up to our house with a peach branch and started sweeping around the house. They were saying in Hmong that if there were any spirits there, that they were not welcome there and that they need to leave. I think for a few months, everything was pretty normal. It was like nothing ever happened. I don't know how long it was, but it was pretty peaceful. Until one night that really freaked our family out. It was during a weeknight. I remember because I had a test the next day. My mom had gone to sleep early to go to work, and my dad was still watching TV in the living room. My older brother was in our room, and my sister was asleep. Around midnight, my dad turned off the TV and told me to go to bed. I went into the room but did not fall asleep right away. Then I heard sounds in the kitchen. There was water running. There was a pot scraping and a spoon hitting what sounded like a bowl. My brother sat up and looked at me. This time, my dad heard it too. I heard his bedroom door open. Then we heard him walk into the hallway. My dad said out loud, "Who is in the kitchen?" The sound stopped. My brother and I got up and went to our door. We could see our dad standing in the living room, staring into the dark kitchen. The small lamp was on, but the kitchen light was off. Then, something inside the kitchen moved. It sounded like a pot was being placed into the sink. My dad turned on the kitchen light. Everything was normal. He opened all the cabinets and all the dishes and pots and pans were still there. He touched the sink, the faucet was off, and then he looked at the two of us and ordered us to go back to our room. But I don't know why, we just continued to stay there. My dad turned off the kitchen light. The three of us were standing there in the living room, and nothing happened. We were about to go back to our rooms when, from the basement, we heard water running. It wasn't upstairs, no, it was downstairs. My dad looked at us, and I could tell that even he was a little scared. He still went to check because he was our dad. He told us to stay put and to stay with the lights on. My brother and I stood at the top of the stairs while my dad went down. The basement was dark, and to turn on the light switch, you had to kind of go down the hallway and flick on the light. Eventually, my dad made his way down and turned on the stair light and went down slowly. We could see his shadow moving along the wall. The water sound kept on going, and then my dad told me to go and wake up our mom. I ran to my parents' room and woke up my mom. She already came out looking kind of scared because she heard the sound too. My little sister woke up from all the noise and came into the hallway. All of us stood at the top of the basement stairs. Then, my dad yelled from downstairs, "The laundry sink is dry." But we could still hear water running. It sounded like it was right below us, like a faucet was open somewhere inside the walls. Then, suddenly, the sound stopped. For maybe 5 seconds, the house was quiet. And then, out of nowhere, this is something that I'll never forget. We heard what sounded like a woman humming. It came from downstairs. It was soft, like someone humming while washing dishes. My mom grabbed my sister and pulled her close. My brother and I stepped back, and I could feel the hair on my arm stand up. My dad, he ran up the stairs so fast. All of us rushed, and we all went to go sleep in my parents' room. We slept with the lights on. The next day, my dad called off of work. He checked everything. He checked the water heater, the laundry sink, the bathrooms, all the pipes that he could see downstairs. Nothing was leaking. Everything was normal. That was one of the more freaky experiences. I also have another one. This one is another sleep paralysis one. I think it's one of my most scariest experiences. One night, I woke up on my back. My eyes were open, and I could see the hallway nightlight that made a thin line on the floor. This is when I realized that I couldn't move. I told myself that it's just sleep paralysis, and I just had to struggle to escape. As I was trying to break free from the paralysis, I was looking around my room. This is when I noticed that our closet door was opening. It was opening very slowly. I watched it open maybe a few inches. It was dark inside. Then I saw a hand. Not a whole arm, just fingers curling around the inside edge of the closet door, like how someone's grabbing it. The fingers looked dark, like there was no light touching them. It held the door for a second. Then I saw a face lean out. I don't remember the face clearly, and I'm glad that I don't. I just remember the hair hanging forward and the feeling that it was staring directly at me. By then, I was so afraid. I was praying to my ancestors, to God, to Jesus, to anything that was listening out there to break me free. I struggled, and I eventually broke free from the paralysis. That's when I yelled and threw myself off the bed. My brother woke up and shouted because I was on the floor. My parents came running, and my little sister was crying from her room. I couldn't explain it right away. I just pointed at the closet. My dad opened it and turned on the light. Nothing was there. But we noticed that it smelled really bad. I remember my parents saying in Hmong that it smelled rotten. That night, my brother and I slept with the lights on. Now, I remember one weekend we were hanging out doing a family gathering. We invited a bunch of the uncles and aunties as well as some of our cousins to come and hang out with us. I can't remember what we were doing, but we were just grilling and hanging out. Everybody was having fun, the adults were drinking beers, and the kids were just running around the house. It wasn't until later at night, when there wasn't a lot of people left. We had an uncle around my dad's age who was sort of a rising shaman at that time. Now, this is what I heard from my dad because I wasn't there. I was probably playing around or something. My dad told us that my uncle pulled him aside and started talking to him. He said that he could feel energy coming from this house. Then, out of nowhere, he asked my dad if we heard water at night. That's when my dad was completely confused. He was shocked because there was no way that my uncle would know about all the occurrences that have happened. My uncle was explaining to my dad that some places and homes have spirits. He said that they repeat what they used to do when they were still alive. He said that he could sense the energy of a female spirit in this house, as well as another spirit that lived in this home. My uncle told my parents that we should really move if we can, and that if we couldn't move right away, that we shouldn't sleep alone, for us to be careful and to not do anything that might disturb it or make it even angrier. My dad thanked my uncle, and for the next few days, my parents talked about the idea of moving out. The biggest problem was money. Moving away wasn't easy when we already had a pretty big family and there were all these other obligations that my parents had to take care of. My dad said that he told my mom that he didn't want to rush to try to find a house because what if they got into another haunted house? But at this point, my mom really wanted to get out of the house. She said that she just did not feel safe there anymore. Now, here was another event that happened. I think it was a little bit before we had moved, and it might be the cause of why we chose to leave. It was in the middle of the night. I woke up because I heard my little sister crying. It wasn't loud crying, but more like scared whispering kind of crying. My brother got up and went into the hallway, and I followed him. My little sister's door was open, and she was standing inside her room, near the wall, facing the corner. We called out to her, asking her what she was doing. She didn't answer. We thought that maybe she was sleepwalking, so we walked a little closer, and that's when we noticed that she was whispering something, but we couldn't hear what. Then, she quickly turned around. Her eyes were open, but she looked like she wasn't fully awake. Then she said in this kind of weird voice, "Mom said to go downstairs." That gave me the goosebumps. We told her that our mom was still asleep and what is she talking about? Then my sister looked toward the hallway past us and said, "She's right there." My brother and I turned around so fast. At the end of the hallway, near the kitchen, there was a dark figure standing still. It wasn't in a clear shape. It was kind of fuzzy, but it was tall enough to look like an adult. It was standing in the part of the hallway where the nightlight did not reach. We couldn't see a face. We couldn't see any clothes. It was just a dark shape like shadow. Then my brother and I started screaming and yelling for our dad. But the whole time we were doing that, the figure did not move. It just stood there. Eventually, we heard my dad coming to the door and unlocking his door, and as he did that, the figure moved back into the darkness. My mom and dad rushed into our room, and by then my sister was already crying. All of us were pretty freaked out, and my sister just would not stop crying. Eventually, she stopped crying, and she told us that she had a dream that her mom was standing by her bed, telling her to come downstairs and help her wash the dishes. In the dream, my mom kept smiling, but her mouth did not look right. Then she woke up standing in the corner of her room with us standing over her. That was pretty much the last straw. My dad contacted a shaman who lived in town. It was a much older shaman, and he told my parents that we would have to do a heavy ceremony because it was very dangerous. He said for us to not worry because he'll be able to take care of it, but that it'll be a very heavy ceremony and he'll require a lot of chickens and pigs. I remember it was that weekend that my brother and I, my dad, and a bunch of uncles and cousins were helping chop meat and do a lot of butchering. The shaman came over and performed the ceremony for what seemed like hours. He kept jumping on his bench and they were burning a lot of joss paper money. The process lasted almost the entire day, and at the end, the shaman was very tired. My dad explained to us that the shaman didn't really say much about what had happened and whatever the entity was in that house, but that he was able to make a deal with it for it to leave us alone. Eventually, all the paranormal activity stopped in that house. We stopped seeing things, we stopped hearing things, and most importantly, it felt a lot safer. But even though we did the ceremony and everything, it was just difficult to live in that house after all the things that we have went through. Eventually, my parents were able to find a much better place that they were able to buy and own, so we moved out of that house in Oakdale. The new house was much bigger, it had a lot more rooms, and most importantly, it wasn't haunted. Eventually, all of us got older, got married, and we all moved out, but my parents still live there. Even now, time to time, my family and I still talk about our experiences when we lived in that house in Oakdale. So far, this is all that I could remember and all that I could share from my siblings and my parents, so if there's anything else that comes up, I'll make sure to send it to you. Oof, that story gave me a lot of goosebumps. It sounds like something from a movie, and I don't know how they handled it for so long, but whatever it was, that did not sound like just a normal spirit that lived in that house, or spirits. Sounds like a whole heap of God knows what lived in there. Maybe it was like a house that was owned by some people that maybe played with the Ouija board, or maybe they did some like satanic stuff in there, and that's why there's a lot of evil, malevolent energy in there, but who knows what. I'm glad that this guy, the writer, the viewer that was able to submit the story is no longer living there. And if you live in a house in Oakdale, Minnesota right now, hey, be careful. If it's one of those upstairs, downstairs houses, you know, you might be living in that one, but I'm hoping that nobody's in those. But let me know what you guys think about this story in the comment section below. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I really need my adult beverages, and YouTube's telling me that you might enjoy this video on screen. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you all next time.